is Jane Low, and I'm at the Singapore International Cyber Week 2025. And with me today, I'm very pleased and very privileged to have Sunny, who is with JFrog, to talk to us about AI in the world of software. So thank you so much, Sunny, for your time today.
Thank you, Jane. Pleasure to be here.
Right, yeah. So, when we come to talk about AI in the world of software, a lot of people immediately, I think, in the audience will think, right? We hear a lot of stories about how AI is helping beginners to build software, right, to help with the coding. And how much of that is a hype versus reality?
I think we're living in an incredible time, especially in the world of software. What AI really is doing is allowing software developers to move beyond the mundane, to start thinking about the logic, the creativity, and the ideation that is needed so that they can focus on those aspects that are going to change the world rather than how do I fix my code. AI really is helping in that area. So on one side, it's a great blessing for software developers to get more creative and get more innovative. On the other side, of course, it introduces some risk. And I think that's an area of concern for an organization, is how do you maintain that balance between the creativity of the software developer and the concerns and the governance and the compliance that an organization needs to maintain in the interest of its customers and consumers.
Right, yeah. So we're going to talk about the risks and the challenges, but before we go into that, right, I also want to pick your brain on how you see cybercriminals using AI to help them write malicious code. Is that something also, how much of it is the hype versus reality?
I think that's very much the reality. Any software, and especially with AI, gives ammunition to bad actors. And they are the ones who are going to test the systems first. And so what we are seeing is an incredible increase in the amount of malicious attacks that are happening because they are probing all the systems to find out where the gaps are and where the vulnerabilities are in an organization's posture, both from the applications that they write and the infrastructure that they maintain. So you have both aspects being tested quite heavily, and AI is creating a dramatic impact in their ability to do this at scale.
Right, okay. So before we go into the risks and challenges, again, I have just one question that comes into my mind is, say for example, a person who has never touched programming before, or coding before, is AI going to be a helpful or companion or co-pilot to introduce them into the world of building software?
I would say, vibe coding, as you're referring to here, is incredibly nice and important when you want to, ideate and show something very quickly to get some feedback about whether you're on the right track. So from that perspective, I think, yes, even if you don't understand how to code, the ability to actually test it out, roll it out, get some feedback, it's possible. But am I going to take that and put it into my enterprise and take it out into commercial production? I think that's an area where that's a bit more of a hype. You want to slow down a little, take a look at all the compliance, the vulnerabilities, the scale, the stability, and all the human oversight that comes with the years of experience that we have to be brought into it. So yes, to ideation, not yet into production.
To experiment and to play around.
Exactly.
Right, so that takes us very nicely to the risks and the challenges, right? So you talk about vulnerabilities and the code. Obviously, AI learns from open source information out there, learns from human sort of code in the past, right? So as much as bugs and vulnerabilities there are in our existing open source databases or all the other databases, the AI will also produce in this vibe coding or otherwise the same amount of vulnerabilities. Is that what you're referring to?
If not more.
If not more. Right.
You look at the wave. We just came out of a massive attack with the NPM issue that the industry has faced. Over 2 million downloads that were affected within hours. You'd see, and which was the Shai Hulud attack. You've had the attack on MCP remote repositories or MCP clients in the AI world, where you can do prompt injection, you can actually get in and inject your code, you can do a takeover. There are attacks on extensions that people, software developers use when they are writing code using AI assistance, and that is being taken over. So I think the surface area of the attacks is increasing. And that means that there will be more and more of this. And as an enterprise leader, you need to really build those defenses very quickly, both from a governance and compliance of your organization, but you have to do it in such a way that software development teams don't feel overburdened.
That's right, yeah.
Right, and so that's the balance you need to keep between speed and security.
You don't have to kill innovation, right?
Exactly.
Before we come into the compliance or the governance or the people aspects, right? I just want to very quickly also touch on a couple of other challenges. So you talk about external attacks, obviously securing the infrastructure where we train our AI is very important. But there's also other sort of AI native risks like hallucination. Now, is that something that you see, in software development? Is it a big concern? Because I was thinking, right, hallucination. The worst is that the AI suggests some programs on some libraries that don't exist. So what's the worst case scenario there?
Well, the worst case scenario can be something that happened back in July this year, wherein one of the extensions told the developer that here's a piece of code that you put it in, and it wiped out their entire AWS database. So I think, governance becomes very important. So these issues are there, but as long as you have oversight, this is a period of change and you will get through it. What becomes problematic is when organizations get carried away with the hype and say, I can do this, and start to let everyone go and do whatever they want. That is a huge risk for an organization. And so I think, what AI is doing is amplifying gaps that you already have. And so it becomes very important that you build a very clear foundation. And organizations have done that with software development for a long time. They've built these practices that are robust and scalable. And at the end of the day, AI models are nothing but software. So why not treat them with the same level of security, governance, and compliance that you've had and the methodology you have in the organization, and not create a completely different silo? And I think that's the call to action for enterprises.
Okay, so on that point, right, I'd just like to also ask whether, how you see this terminology, shadow AI versus shadow IT, right? How is that different, or what does that mean for defenses, cyber defense?
Yeah, I think everyone's in that period of a bit of learning. You have organizations where developers sometimes, in the interest of wanting to develop very quickly, download anything from anywhere on the internet. They'd done that in the past with open source packages. Now they're doing it with AI models. And this is starting to become a real issue because they don't know how to handle what AI is saying. Is it right? What does it mean for my organization? What is the impact? The ability to understand that as a developer, especially if you are in your early part of your career inside an organization, this becomes a bit of a challenge. And that's something that organizations have to be very careful about with AI models. Where did the data set come for training? What is the provenance of your model? Does it comply to my organization's policies? These things become very, very important. And governments are starting to come in as well and start to ask these questions of enterprises that use AI models.
There's also the risk of, you talk about the importance of exercising caution when using AI copilots for programming, right? So in my mind, that means, when we use the chat, right, to say, please review this code. So we feed the chat with this piece of library or something, but it doesn't necessarily have gone through some sanitization. So obviously some way of, when we talk about governance or AI security policies, there should be some layer of scrutinizing that input, right?
Absolutely, and this is an area where JFrog has been quite focused on. We've built this integration with one of the most popular applications out there for AI, which is GitHub Copilot. And so we've built this ability where you can use Copilot to make suggestions to your code, but JFrog in real time is feeding into it to say, is there any issues with that code? Does it meet the organization's security standards, their compliance? Are there any vulnerabilities? Are there any transitive risks in there? And so what we are trying to do is make the developer experience so seamless that they're not always switching between context, between development and security, that security is inherent in their development practices so that they can get their software out into production in the fastest amount of time, but to do so securely. So this integration is always watching as the developer is building. While Copilot may suggest code snippets, we're saying whether those code snippets meet the organization's policies and are secure. And I think this ability to work in real time makes for a great developer experience.
So what other sort of cyber defenses or defense in depth or layers, is needed when it comes to AI and software development?
It's a great question, Jane. I'm very focused about how organizations get the best out of their people. And one of the most frustrating things for developers is the conflict that they get into when they build software, but then the software doesn't see the light of day for a long time because it goes through a lot of security checks. And so in trying to do this, one of the other areas we thought about was to try and shift even more left. If 70 to 80% of your code, whether that be AI models or software packages, is coming from the open source, well, why don't we gate it right before it enters the organization? So let's look at your policies, what kind of licenses your organization is ready to use, whether there are security issues in there, there are known vulnerabilities. Let's gate it right in the beginning so that the developer is not even bringing those packages inside the organization. So they know that when they start working, they're working with something that has inherently lower risk. And then you have the continuous scanning capabilities that we build, which as you build your first-party code, we're also having that oversight over it, whether you're using AI models or software packages, both are software, that we are watching over it. But not just over that, but also the transitive risks. In the world of software packages, developers know that they call a certain library that calls another library that call another library, so you have all these transitive dependencies. And is there a risk in there? With AI models, it gets even wider. An AI model, especially if you're in the age of agentic, may distribute the workload across multiple workers, each doing its own. So how do you know now that you have security across all of it and that you have the ability to comply, and you also know you have the controls in place as to what changes are happening? So how do you audit that? What kind of bill of materials can you build out of that?
Yes, so talking about bills of materials, right? So there's a SBOM, now we're talking about AI bomb. So tell us about, what are the essential ingredients?
Absolutely, yeah. It's nice that each question suddenly pops up on the back of what I've been saying. I think SBOMs became quite a norm. As people built applications, especially for mission-critical industries, SBOMs is quite relevant. Everyone knows about it. But now the same concept has extended into AI bill of materials, or MLBOM, as machine learning bomb. Why do you want to know that? Well, a lot of the models that you bring in, you want to know what data sets they've been used to do the training. What is the provenance of them? Has there been all the compliance in collecting the data used to train the models? Are there any biases inherent inside that you need to prevent? You need to get a look at all of these. What are the risks? Is it secure? Is it allowing remote participants to get hold of networks in my system, files inside my system? Can they do injection attacks? So you need to have the security constraints. So you really want to know where all these models are coming. At the same time, that's for models that you bring in from the open source. Same time, your organization may use API-based models where you're sending data. What data can you actually send over to them? Because you don't know what the compliance requirements are for your organization. So how do you govern that with the right policies? So these are the areas where AI bomb, or ML bomb as we call it, machine learning bomb, starts to become important, because you're now saying, what versions did I use? Where did I get them from? What kind of data was used? What licenses are governing these models? What compliance? What regulatory requirements am I meeting for the different parts of the world that I operate in as an enterprise? And that's what ML bomb is trying to do. It really creates that for you. And JFrog's platform has been working to provide this seamlessly so that you can actually have a clear governance policy And really we start getting into now going from DevOps to DevSecOps to DevSecOps and MLOps to DevGovOps now, which is really bringing governance into your operations of your software development lifecycle.
So when you talk about governance, you are talking about the policies, the access rights, the kind of roles your AI agents or the developer, the human developer can adopt.
And also GRC, governance, regulatory, compliance. GRC is quite a nightmare for organizations to go through. They need to have evidence from the entire software development lifecycle, and that's not been very trivial to do. And what we did is we allowed the ability to collect evidence across the entire ecosystem. And recently at our user group event, we introduced something called AppTrust with the evidence ecosystem. And what we meant there is organizations are focused on releasing an application out into the market. Everything centers around that application. The application has many components. It has software packages. It has AI models. I need to get all the bill of materials. I also need to know who promoted the application through the entire development lifecycle, who approved it, what risks were there, what mitigation steps did we take. All of that evidence is collected right through the software development lifecycle, not just for people who use JFrog's platform, but we worked with an ecosystem of partners, ServiceNow, GitHub, Sonar, NVIDIA, etc., to be able to collect all of this evidence as software is built into the JFrog platform and then provide that as a one single source of truth and a system of record for your organization to promote.
Right. So for an organization that is thinking about now seriously starting to think about securing the AI or MLSecOps or DevSecOps, what are the kind of the first thing they need to do, without jumping into the AI hype, right? Because there's so much competitive pressure to push out software, right? And security is always a secondary concern in many ways. So how would you say, you need to start thinking about security, like you say, shift left, secure by design, right? From the very start of your software development lifecycle.
Absolutely, and I think I've seen both types of enterprises in my experience. Ones that have moved very quickly and then put a break because they had to fix everything else, and the others that have taken their time in planning it and then building up a robust and scalable model. And I think what we are going through is the environment is changing so quickly that you really need to first protect what comes into your organization and build the best practices inside your organization. Work with software that your organization says complies with our regulation and with our policies. So you put a gate, completely shift left, you put the gates there to bring in the software that comes in. Now once you have that, now you know that you can build a more structured foundation and policies. What can your developers get in? What can they play with? Where can they ideate? What kind of extensions? Because you know that anything that's coming in, whether it's software, whether it's extensions that the developers are using, has all been scanned and checked. And then you use continuous scanning on top of it, collect the evidence at every stage, and then you are ready to use models. But even in the area of models, we provide the ability for organizations to compare and contrast. AI models have new versions coming out every single day. And there are many, many providers around at this time. It's a highly competitive environment, but also highly exciting. So which one do I use for my particular use case? How do I actually transform these models with my data sets? How many times do I do that? How much does it cost? Those are the other areas that enterprises are still trying to figure it out. How much does this all cost? And what is the return on investment? And those are the areas where we're helping enterprises manage it using the JFrog platform to be able to securely bring in software artifacts as well as AI models, which are also software, continuously scanning through the whole development and build cycle, all the way to promotion and runtime, and the ability to figure out what is the impact on my infrastructure, my cost, when I run models and compare different models for different use cases and different geographies.
Right, it's a lot of food for thought. It's obviously a very big change management exercise, right? To bring in, to adopt AI. Before we close off the podcast, that's one last question. What do you think is the one risk that most organizations, kind of underestimate when it comes to software development?
I think the greatest risk is really being a little flippant about how critical software security is, and not putting the abundance of caution on that. Software is moving so quickly. There are so many new tools that are extremely exciting to use. Each one comes with its own level of excitement, and allowing the organization to proliferate its use across the entire organization is a huge risk. It has happened before, it continues to happen now, even with tools that organizations use. Sometimes it's so exciting to get yet another tool into the organization that you land up with 7 or 10 different tools, even for security, and you don't know what is right, because each tool is saying something, and you are not able to bring them all together with one cohesive view of everything that's happening inside your organization, because every tool is giving you a snapshot in time. And I think that's a risk, not having an end-to-end visibility of what's going on in your organization, not having the evidence for that, and letting it to become a do as you please inside the organization in the hope of getting creativity and speed. I think is a bit of a risk. I think you want to see AI and software proliferate at speed, but securely.
Yes, responsible AI or safe AI, right? So can I just ask you, if we can end the podcast on a more optimistic note, what excites you about AI and software development today?
I think every 10 years there's a tectonic shift in how we build software. And I think we are at that tipping point where we will see yet another tectonic shift in the way software gets proliferated and built. I think that's incredibly exciting, and every time this shift has happened, it has been incredibly exciting. But when you have something very exciting, people do get a little cautious about it. My goal is to simply say, treat that caution with respect, so that you can have a really amazing journey as an organization ahead. So there's nothing too worrisome other than doing the right things for your organization.
Well, I look forward to having a conversation with you 10 years later and see where we are compared to what your expectations are.
I look forward to that, Jane.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sonny, for your time today.
Thank you.